I experienced a rebirth on the day my sister and I were choosing our husbands. That was when I discovered I could hear people's thoughts. I could hear my sister's thoughts clearly. This time, I had to secure the best husband before she did. Then she quickly pushed aside the gentle man I had married in my previous life, leaving me with the cruel man who had once mistreated her. I couldn't help but laugh. Did she truly believe the man I had married in my past life was someone worthy of admiration? Once again, I found myself on the day of the husband selection. Across the dinner table sat two men of similar age. One was Logan Carter, the eldest son of the Carter family, who was cold and distant by nature. The other was Ethan Carter, the youngest son, though considered illegitimate. He was calm and gentle. This time, I had to claim the best husband first. I could hear my sister's thoughts again. I glanced at her, but she didn't speak a word. Instead, she stared intently at Ethan. "Just wait. This time I'll take you away," I heard her thoughts. That's when I realized, not only had I been reborn, but I also had the ability to hear people's thoughts. Judging by what my sister had just thought, she must have been reborn as well. Otherwise, her thoughts wouldn't have been so. Sure enough, the next moment, she walked over and sat next to Ethan, looking at him with a shy expression. "Hello, I'm Sophia Evans. I like you," she said coyly. At that moment, my father suddenly spoke. "Susan, since your sister has chosen Ethan Carter, you will marry Logan Carter." When he said that, my sister's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. In her mind, she sneered, "This time, you'll take the punishment for me." In my past life, Sophia had married Logan. Logan was a successful businessman, always busy, emotionally distant, and cold. My sister tried repeatedly to get close to him, but each time, he rejected her and sent her away. Eventually, because she couldn't have children, Mrs. Carter declared her infertile and expelled her from the family. As for me, I had married Ethan. Although he had little power in the Carter family, he gave me comfort and security. He took me shopping, out to eat, and spoiled me endlessly. Everyone knew how much he adored me. Later, when Logan suddenly died from poisoning, Ethan inherited the family's business, and my status in the family grew overnight. Consumed by jealousy, my sister purposely ran me over with her car while I was out shopping, killing us both. "All right, Dad," I replied with a smile. "I like Logan too." Then I calmly walked over and sat next to Logan Carter. I had to admit, this man had a powerful presence. The moment I sat down, I felt an aura of coldness surround me, making me hesitant to speak. No wonder my sister had suffered so much in my past life. I tried listening to his thoughts, but heard nothing. However, when Ethan turned to smile at Sophia, I suddenly heard his thoughts. "What a beautiful little doll." A chill ran down my spine. Instinctively, I grabbed Logan's hand. Despite his cold exterior, his hand was warm. Sensing my touch, he turned to glance at me. I quickly pulled my hand away, and he returned to his silence. Even though Logan appeared intimidating, I felt it would be better to stay with him than with Ethan, who was like a venomous snake. This time, I was determined to change my fate. I would make my own money, become independent, and never rely on anyone. Our wedding took place on the same day. In my past life, we had also married on the same day. Back then, Logan hadn't even shown up to the ceremony, while Ethan had arrived early, and everyone remarked how considerate he was. As expected, history repeated itself. Ethan, in a white suit, hurried to carry Sophia away. As they passed by, she looked at me with smug satisfaction. "Susan, where's Logan? Didn't he come to get you?" She sneered. I simply smiled. "No need to worry, Sophia. Just take care of yourself." Her face darkened, clearly upset. "Go ahead and laugh now. Let's see if you'll still be laughing when you're the one being beaten." After thinking that, Ethan took Sophia downstairs with him. But it was far too soon to say who would have the last laugh. Just like in my past life, Logan didn't attend the wedding, leaving both Sophia and me to endure whispers and judgmental stares. Sophia, unable to hide her excitement, clung to Ethan and exclaimed, "I love you, Ethan." Then he kissed her. After the kiss, she glared at me, her lips still wet with his kiss. I knew she was eager to see me humiliated. But I wasn't foolish. Unlike my past self, who had stormed off in anger, causing a perfect scandal for the family to gossip about, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I remembered how everyone criticized Sophia for being immature and unworthy of being the Carter family's eldest daughter-in-law. As a result, Mrs. Carter never showed her any kindness, making Sophia's life in the family miserable. With a poised smile, I took the microphone and addressed the guests. Logan had an important business deal today, so I'll be making the rounds for the wedding toast on his behalf. I hope you all won't mind. Immediately, the guests fell silent. Even Mrs. Carter, seated at the main table, gave me a look of newfound respect. The Carter family valued its reputation above all. At moments like these, a daughter-in-law had to show poise and composure. Sophia noticed Mrs. Carter's reaction, and her eyes flashed with irritation. "Disgusting," she sneered mentally. "Just wait. When it's time for the tea ceremony, I'll make sure you embarrass yourself." Honestly, I found my ability to hear others' thoughts incredibly useful. It was like a cheat code for life. Everything became so much easier. When the tea ceremony began, I carefully lifted my gown and walked toward Mrs. Carter. Sophia kept her gaze fixed on me, mentally counting down. At the last moment, I dodged just in time to avoid whatever she had planned. Instead, she lost her balance and fell hard to the floor, spilling tea all over herself. "Oh no, are you okay?" Ethan rushed to help her up, but in his mind, I heard him mock her. "What an idiot." Everyone turned to look at us. Mrs. Carter's face hardened with displeasure. "How reckless. Do you even know what it means to be a proper daughter-in-law?" "I'm sorry, Mother," Sophia stammered, trying to cover her embarrassment, though her unwillingness was evident in her eyes. If I were in her shoes, I would have accepted the loss and focused on living peacefully. But she wasn't going to let me have any peace, so I wasn't about to be lenient with her. With Sophia making a spectacle of herself, the wedding concluded in an uncomfortable hurry. From start to finish, Mrs. Carter never once looked at her kindly. However, when she turned her gaze toward me, all I saw was approval. She even took my hand and warmly said, "Susan, tonight I'll make sure Logan comes home to keep you company. He should make it up to you." And sure enough, that night, Logan did return. The moment he stepped through the door, he loosened his tie, exhaustion written across his face. I immediately went to take his jacket. "Logan, you must be exhausted today," I said gently. He only glanced at me and said nothing. In my past life, the servants had whispered about how Logan never came home on our wedding night. My sister had waited alone in the bridal chamber, becoming the target of ridicule throughout the household. When she went to Mrs. Carter to complain, she was scolded instead and told she lacked the ability to win a man's heart. While Logan showered, I prepared his bed, made some tea, and set up the couch for myself. When he emerged and saw the scene, surprise flickered in his eyes. I quickly explained, "You take the bed, I'll take the couch." He narrowed his eyes, studying me. "Susan, are you trying to play hard to get?" Draped in only a bathrobe, his chest slightly exposed and water droplets still clinging to his skin. I had to admit, his physique was impressive. I quickly looked away. We don't have real feelings for each other. Sharing a bed would be awkward for both of us. If possible, I'd prefer a partnership, I added. Logan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "After all, our marriage is a business arrangement. Many couples in our situation live separate lives and only pretend for appearances. I married you to ensure stability and comfort. I don't expect love." At my words, he smirked. "You're smart. I'm fine with that. I was just an ordinary person, without the ability or confidence to control a man's heart." In the Carter family, Logan's treatment of me would largely depend on how Mrs. Carter saw me. I had no desire to end up like Sophia in my past life, ostracized and targeted by everyone. That would be of no benefit to me. Besides, in my previous life, Logan had physically mistreated Sophia. I had no intention of provoking him and ending up in the same situation. Peaceful coexistence was the best choice. This time, my goal was to make money, start my own business, and rise to success on my own terms. To keep up appearances, I had Logan post a picture of us holding hands on social media with the caption, "Happy Newlyweds." This way, everyone would believe our marriage was fine. As I scrolled through his profile, I noticed how empty it was. Aside from the new post, there was nothing else. Someone like him must lead a rather dull life. That night, Logan indeed took the bed while I slept on the couch. He had no concept of chivalry, But I should be thankful. At least he didn't pressure me into anything. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Logan working out. He was doing push-ups while listening to music. I had heard that emotionally distant men are usually weak, but his 8-pack abs and toned legs proved his incredible strength, far superior to Ethan's physique. "Stop staring," Logan suddenly said as he got up. "I'm not interested in you." He put on his shirt and added, "Get ready. Let's go have breakfast." I knew what he meant. He wanted people to see us together, to make it appear as if we were in love. Honestly, he seemed reasonable. I still didn't understand why he had mistreated Sophia in my previous life. After getting dressed, I left the house with Logan. As we stepped outside, I saw Sophia and Ethan walking toward us, hand in hand. Sophia wore a strapless dress, her collarbone and shoulders covered in hickeys, which she deliberately displayed as she leaned closer. Her face gleamed with pride as she looked me up and down. "She's completely covered up. She must have been beaten last night and is trying to hide the bruises." Her inner voice echoed in my mind, followed by a smug smile. "Susan, how was your wedding night?" she asked with a mocking tone. I wore an elegant long-sleeved Sam. Sophia must have forgotten that Mrs. Carter despised revealing clothing and excessive makeup, but I didn't feel the need to remind her. I simply smiled. "Sophia, according to seniority in the Carter family, you should address me as sister-in-law, not sister." Her face darkened. She gritted her teeth, unwilling to accept it. "Even Logan never calls you that. What right do you have to ask me for it?" She turned to Logan. "Logan, say something." I felt the air around Logan grow colder. In his mind, Ethan cursed. "Damn, idiot. Just wait until tonight. I'll teach you a lesson." He pulled Sophia's hand, silently signaling her to stop. But she was oblivious to the trouble she had just gotten herself into. "Tell me, Ethan," Logan said calmly. "What is the first rule of the Carter family?" Ethan immediately lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Logan. I'll handle it right away." The next moment, Ethan slapped Sophia hard across the face. "Show respect. Greet your brother and sister-in-law properly," he ordered. Sophia's face flushed red from the slap. She was furious, but she knew Logan wasn't someone she could defy. Reluctantly, she muttered through clenched teeth, "Good morning, brother. Good morning, sister-in-law." As soon as she spoke, Ethan dragged her away. I recalled that the first rule of the Carter family was that no one could disrespect the heir or his wife. Addressing them improperly resulted in 30 lashes, and Logan was the rightful heir. I remembered that in my past life, I had learned all the Carter family rules to survive. Back then, after Sophia married Logan, she constantly tormented me. But because I knew this rule, I never dared disrespect her. I had assumed Sophia knew these rules as well, but clearly, she hadn't remembered. That's why she thought she could bully me in this life. By the time we reached the dining hall, Sophia had already been punished. Her face was pale, and she kept her head lowered, not daring to sit yet. Under the table, I caught sight of Ethan repeatedly pricking her hand with a needle. "You worthless woman. It's all your fault I had to endure this humiliation," he thought, pressing harder each time. In my past life, it wasn't long after I married him that he started mistreating me. He never allowed me to speak about it, and I had no way to escape. I suffered deeply because of him. That's why, in this life, I would rather be with Logan than ever be with Ethan again. "Sophia, this time you chose your own husband. Don't blame me." Mrs. Carter arrived, and we all stood up to greet her. Leaning on her cane, she was about to let us sit when her gaze froze on Sophia. Sophia hadn't changed out of her dress. She was still wearing that strapless gown. Noticing Mrs. Carter's disapproval, Sophia quickly forced a smile, pretending to feel embarrassed. "Mom, it was all Ethan's doing. He said he liked how I looked when carrying his child." As soon as those words left her mouth, Mrs. Carter's face darkened with fury. She raised her cane and struck Sophia's back. "Shameless. What you do as a couple is your business, but don't speak of such things in public. And don't ever dress so indecently again. You're humiliating the family." In my past life, even a maid was dismissed for wearing shorts. That's why I had always been cautious. I survived in the Carter household because I was careful. But Sophia always thought my good life was just because I had married the right man. She misunderstood entirely. Why did she think a good life had to depend on someone else? I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know, Sophia whimpered, sweat forming on her forehead from the pain. Ethan quickly spoke up, pretending to take the blame. Mom, it's my fault. I forgot to remind her. Although his voice sounded apologetic, I could hear his thoughts. Serves you right. Watching you get beaten is the best entertainment. Disgusting. What a psychopath. Since she was a newlywed daughter-in-law, Mrs. Carter didn't scold her further. She took her seat and instructed us to eat. Logan stayed quiet throughout the meal, but while we were eating, he casually placed some food on my plate. I could feel Sophia's angry gaze on me, as if she wanted to tear me apart. I smiled brightly and said, "Thank you, honey." Mrs. Carter looked pleased and turned to me. "Susan, after lunch, you should go to the company with Logan and start learning. As the eldest daughter-in-law of the Carter family, you need to understand the business." I had expected this. In my past life, she had said the same thing to Sophia at the dining table. But Sophia had responded, "I don't want to learn. I can just rely on Logan for the rest of my life." She had willingly pushed away a golden opportunity. So when she was eventually kicked out of the Carter family, she had nothing left. "Of course, Mom," I replied obediently. Logan took me to the company. The entire ride, I tried to read his thoughts, but there was nothing. That made sense. A man like him wouldn't be swayed by emotions. He had nothing to worry about. When we arrived, Logan took me to his office. "Wait here," he said before walking out. Through the glass door, I saw him rushing toward the conference room. Curious, I followed. Inside, he was negotiating with a British businessman about selling a formula he had developed. Luckily, I had done my research beforehand. This deal was crucial for the Carter family. I overheard the British man's thoughts clearly. "This formula is only worth a few $100. This time, I'll make sure to rip the Carter family off." I was surprised, but Logan's expression remained calm and composed. No one would suspect the scheming happening in his mind. He quoted a price of $3 million confidently. Logan hesitated, not responding immediately. Sensing an opportunity, the man pressed, "Mr. Carter, I assure you, this product will bring you far more value than $3 million. Just as Logan was about to agree, I pushed the door open and walked in. "Hello," I greeted in English. Then I picked up the bottle of skincare serum he had developed and examined it closely. "I'm a woman. I understand skincare products better than most. Your formula only contains whitening ingredients. It doesn't have any anti-aging or wrinkle-reducing properties. As an engineer, you should know that surface-level whitening effects are negligible at best. So tell me, why exactly is this formula worth $3 million? The British man was stunned. Logan leaned back, watching me with interest, not interrupting. I took that as an invitation to continue. "Since this is a foreign product and you've done a lot of promotion on social media, many people already trust your brand. So I'll offer you this amount." I raised a finger. $1 million. The man was shocked. $1 million? That's quite generous. I shook my head. "No, I'll give you $10,000. For a formula worth only a few $10,000 is my final offer." The room fell silent. The British man stood up abruptly, clearly angry. "Miss, who are you to set such a price? How am I supposed to do business like this? Fine, I won't sell it. It's not like you must have it." With that, he turned to leave. "Jack," Logan said calmly, his voice commanding, "I'll give you $1 million. Sign the contract now, and I expect you to apologize to my wife." Jack froze mid-step, his eyes lighting up with excitement. He turned around immediately. I was completely baffled by Logan's decision and tried to stop him, but he shook his head slightly, signaling for me to stay quiet. I had no choice but to hold back. "Mr. Carter, you're a real businessman," Jack said with a pleased smile. Then he turned to me. "I apologize, Mrs. Carter. I didn't realize you were Mr. Carter's wife." After that, Logan took Jack to sign the contract. When it was all over, I still didn't understand. That formula was only worth a few $100. Why did you pay him $1 million? Logan took a sip of coffee and spoke in an unhurried tone. "You have a good business instinct, but you don't fully understand the market yet. Jack's formula itself is worthless. I knew that from the start. What I wanted was the brand he built. Although it's not well known yet, he's established a strong reputation among young women. With a little more promotion, I can easily make back that million. Suddenly, it all clicked. So that's why Jack had been so confident. He knew his brand had value. Coming here was definitely the right choice. I was learning things I never would have in my past life, but I was still curious. Logan fixed his intense gaze on me, causing me to smile awkwardly. It seemed he wasn't going to ask me any more questions, so I decided to take the chance to make a request. I'd like to run one of your branch companies. In my previous life, Ethan held no significant position in the Carter family and couldn't offer me anything. I had always dreamed of starting my own business and becoming my own boss. That way, I wouldn't have to depend on anyone. Once I earned enough money, I could walk away from it all. Logan scrutinized me for a moment, then smirked. You've got some ambition, I see. You're not planning on taking the company, making a fortune, and disappearing, are you? His piercing look made me feel vulnerable, as if he could see straight through me. Damn it. How was he so much better at reading people than I was? For the first time I felt inferior. I had a literal superpower, yet he still had me beat. This must be what real talent looked like. No, of course not, I said, forcing a smile. I just want something to do. Logan took a sip of his coffee and nodded. All right, but you'll need to learn from me first before I let you take charge. For the next few days, I followed Logan around the company, learning a great deal. Not just about business, but also about handling relationships and navigating social situations. To my surprise, one day he invited me out to dinner. Not just anywhere, though. It was the most extravagant Western restaurant in town. I didn't expect to run into Sophia and Ethan there. Sophia had been cutting Ethan's steak for him, but when she noticed Logan and me walking in, she immediately set down her knife and fork, clearly startled. Susan, you're here too, she said, quickly correcting herself. I mean brother, sister-in-law, you're here for dinner as well? Almost immediately I heard her thoughts. What is she doing here now? Why now? I can't lose face. Yes, I said with a smile. Logan and I came here for dinner. Without hesitation, I looped my arm through Logan's. He didn't resist. Ethan stepped forward quickly to greet us. Brother, sister-in-law. Logan didn't acknowledge them. Instead, he guided me toward a table, seating us down. I caught the furious look in Sophia's eyes. She must have been wondering why Logan hadn't yet hit me or why he had brought me out to dinner. When I went to the restroom, Sophia was waiting for me outside, her face filled with malice, similar to the look she had in my past life when she ran into me with her car. You must be getting beaten up behind closed doors, she sneered. Stop pretending. Just looking at you makes me sick. I couldn't help but chuckle at her words. My gaze drifted to the needle marks on her arm. Oh my, Sophia, I said mockingly. What happened to your arm? So many needle marks. Her eyes flashed with panic as she quickly covered her arm and shot me a glare. None of your business. It's just something fun between Ethan and me. Then with a smirk, she leaned in. Not that you'd understand. Logan probably hasn't even touched you, has he? Unlike Ethan, who wants me all night long. I'm exhausted. She was clearly miserable, yet she still tried to act superior. I wondered how long she could keep up this act. That's wonderful, I said brightly. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness. I turned to leave, but before I could, she grabbed a fistful of my hair and yanked it hard. Are you mocking me? She snarled. I frowned, struggling to free myself. But just as I was about to break free, Logan appeared out of nowhere. Without hesitation, he kicked her away. Disrespecting your sister-in-law, he said coldly, looming over her. Do you know what the punishment for that is? I remembered the punishment all too well. Being locked in the underground cell. I had been sent there once before because of Sophia. That place was infested with rats, cockroaches, and snakes. Sophia knew exactly what awaited her. Her face turned deathly pale. Brother, I didn't mean to. Please don't do this. But Logan had made up his mind. He was never one to show mercy. He ordered Ethan to take her away, and I heard Ethan's thoughts. Hope she dies in there. Less trouble for me. Logan took me back to our bedroom and checked my head. Are you okay? He asked. I'm fine, I said, brushing his hand away. She just pulled my hair a little. I adjusted my clothes and fixed my hair before glancing at him. But why did you suddenly come to the restroom? His dark eyes met mine. You were gone for a while. I was about to ask why you got into an argument with her again. I hesitated, unsure whether to tell him that Sophia had been reborn and was intentionally targeting me. Instead, I simply said, she told me she and Ethan are intimate every night and are very happy, unlike you, who won't even touch me. That's why we argued. Logan's eyes darkened slightly. So, are you hinting at something? I immediately realized he misunderstood me. I waved my hands in panic. No, that's not what I meant. I was just explaining why we argued. Logan stared at me with intensity. Susan, have you ever thought about doing that with me? Of course not, I blurted without hesitation. I told you, I only want a stable life with you. That's all. That's all, he pressed. I nodded firmly. He didn't say anything else. Instead, he suddenly slammed the door behind him and left. I had no idea what part of my words had upset him, nor did I care. I wanted to focus on my own plans. The next day, Logan didn't take me to the company. Instead, he sent me to manage one of the branch offices on my own. I threw myself into running the company, determined to earn $10 million before stepping away. Every day, I chased deals, negotiated contracts, and brought in significant profits. Mrs. Carter even allowed me to take my share of earnings directly. Just as I was reveling in my financial success, Sophia was released from the underground cell. When I returned home from work, I saw her. She had lost weight but was still impeccably dressed, her makeup flawless, her clothes elegant. She clung to Ethan as they approached me. Sister-in-law, she said sweetly, I've already asked Mom for permission to learn the company business from you. I want to help ease your workload. But in her mind I heard, very soon, I'll make sure you and Logan die together. A sudden realization struck me. Logan's death in my past life had been sudden and unexplained. Ethan was the one who had caused it. Not only did he want to kill Logan, but now, he wanted to kill me too. I forced a smile and controlled my emotions before responding to Sophia. The next moment, I heard her thoughts loud and clear. What an idiot, she thought. Just wait. I'll kill you both soon and live freely. Despite spending days locked away in the underground cell, she remained sharp. Too bad she didn't realize I could hear her thoughts. She had no chance of killing me. In my past life, Logan had died from poisoning. Now, I remembered the cabinet filled with colorful vials in Ethan's basement. Back then, he often used them in his experiments on me. Sometimes, they'd knock me out cold. Other times, they'd push my body beyond its limits. Thinking back, those must have been poison samples. I brought Sophia to the company and had her start as an intern. She'd learned to mask her feelings, agreeing to everything I said without hesitation. I knew exactly why. She was plotting to kill. Ethan wanted both Logan and me dead, but Sophia also had a plan to kill him. I could use that to my advantage. It didn't take long before I set my plan in motion. Behind Logan's back, I approached Ethan. I knew him well. He had a preference for obedient women. That was how I'd survived with him for so long in my past life. So, I dressed provocatively and looked at him with feigned admiration. Ethan, I like you, I confessed. His interest was piqued immediately. Sister-in-law, aren't you worried my brother will kill you? I bit my lip, pretending to be shy. I've always wanted to be with you, I said. Then I lowered my voice. And I have something important to tell you. He leaned in closer, intrigued. Sophia wants to poison you, I whispered. Yesterday, I overheard her talking to a man about it. Ethan's face darkened, fury burning in his eyes. Are you serious? Of course, I nodded. She said you always hit her, so she's planning to kill you. She wants to rise to power on her own. Thanks to my memories from my past life, I knew exactly how to manipulate him. Hearing my words, Ethan believed every word I said. His darkest secrets, his violent nature, his cruelty, were known only to Sophia and him. No one else could know. I'll make her pay, he spat. He turned to me with a sly grin. Sister-in-law, just wait. Once I get rid of both Logan and her, you'll be mine. After saying that, he left. Did he really think I was that naive? There was no way I'd follow him. I went straight to Logan without wasting any time. Though his life didn't directly affect me, he had helped me in this life. He had given me opportunities to earn money and even shared business strategies with me. When I told him everything, he was surprised. "Do you have proof that Ethan wants to kill me?" I showed him a recording of our conversation. The first part was me seducing Ethan to gain his trust. Even I cringed at how flirtatious I sounded, so I quickly explained it was just an act to earn his trust. Logan didn't respond, but his face darkened. Sensing the shift in his mood, I wisely stayed silent. The next thing I knew, he pulled me into his arms. The scent of pine surrounded me, and I could hear his heart beat steadily. I froze, completely caught off guard. He looked down at me, his gaze intense. "Susan, I advise you never to betray me," he said. "As long as you are my wife, stay loyal to me." This idiot. How did he twist the situation like this? But I pushed that aside and changed the subject. "The important thing is that your brother is planning to kill you. What will you do about it?" Logan remained indifferent. "Let's see if he can actually kill me. If he fails, then he dies." It was as though he didn't take Ethan's threat seriously at all. Instead of being cautious, he even took me to a banquet, claiming it would help with the company's development and give me the chance to meet potential clients. As soon as we entered, I felt the weight of many stares. Most of them were hostile. "Men are all the same," I heard Logan's inner thoughts. "If I'd known, I wouldn't have brought her along." I turned in shock to look at him. His face was expressionless. Had he really just thought that? What did he mean? Noticing my gaze, he looked down at me. "What's wrong?" I shook my head quickly. "Nothing." But then, I heard another thought. "She's so clueless." I was stunned. The cold, arrogant CEO in my memory was thinking this. I forced myself to stay calm and kept my emotions in check. After the banquet, Logan drove me home. Sophia and Ethan were waiting for us in the living room. Sophia smiled warmly and invited us to dinner. Ethan, however, couldn't stop staring at my chest. With a grin, he said, "Brother, sister-in-law, Sophia and I bought some great ingredients today. Come eat with us." Could he be any more obvious? I couldn't understand how Logan had fallen for such an obvious trap in my past life. The dining table was full of delicious food, but I didn't dare eat a thing. Under the table, I squeezed Logan's hand to warn him. But the next second, he picked up his chopsticks and took a bite. "It tastes good," he said casually. "Let's eat." Sophia and Ethan exchanged a quick, pleased glance. My panic surged. I dug my nails into Logan's hand, trying to stop him. But he didn't flinch. I had told him they were trying to kill him. Why was he still eating? Just then, Logan and Sophia collapsed onto the table. Mrs. Carter stormed in, her face livid. "Guards, take these two traitors to the underground cell. They're never leaving again." I barely had time to process what was happening before Logan turned to me, a faint smirk on his lips. "Susan, I'm not as foolish as you think," he said. "I already told my mother to install security cameras around the house. The moment Ethan spiked the drinks, we switched them out. They drank sedatives instead of poison." His voice dropped a bit. "But you seemed really worried about me. Are you falling for me?" For some reason, my heart started racing. "I'm not," I quickly replied. "I just didn't want to be left with no one to rely on if you died." He smiled brilliantly. "Is that so?" With Sophia and Ethan locked away, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. The two individuals I had feared the most were no longer in the picture. I had accumulated enough wealth, and now, all that remained was to bring up the topic of divorce with Logan. However, he had been extremely busy and rarely came home. I could only wait for the right moment. That day, I was told by the servants that both Ethan and Sophia had been requesting to see me. I decided to visit Sophia first. Her hair was unkempt, and she looked drained, but there was still a fire of defiance in her eyes. "How did you know I was trying to kill you?" she demanded. "How did you find out?" In the next moment, her eyes widened as realization hit her. "I see. You returned as well, didn't you?" she said. I smiled at her. "Are you only just figuring that out now?" I remarked. Her face contorted with rage, and she lunged at the bars, gripping them tightly as if she wanted to tear me apart. You little bee, you've hidden so well, she snarled. You always knew Ethan was a psychopath, didn't you? You just watched as I fell into the abyss. Susan, you're so cruel, she hissed. I met her gaze, staring at a face that resembled mine in some ways. She was my sister by blood, but in my previous life, she had been the one to kill me. Had I not been able to hear thoughts in this life, I would have met the same tragic fate again. You chose Ethan, just like you chose Logan, I said coldly. No matter who you choose, you're never satisfied. Then you blame me. But have you ever considered that the real problem lies with you? I continued. You want to rely on men. I want to rely on myself. That's where we differ. Why does everything go so easily for you, no matter who you're with? She screamed in frustration. You think my life has been easy? I scoffed. I've fought every step of the way for my survival. I earned everything I have. But you never put in any effort. You expect others to save you. That's why you're in this situation. With that, I turned to walk away. Behind me, Sophia screamed in rage. You'll regret this. Next time I won't lose to you. Next, I went to see Ethan. He was folding a blanket neatly. Some habits never changed. His obsessive tendencies were still present. When he saw me, he chuckled. Susan, you're clever, he said. A great actress. I actually thought you wanted to be with me. I was ready to kill Sophia and Logan for you, but you've surprised me. You deserved it, I snapped, glaring at him. His face reminded me of the twisted figure from my past life, the man who had tortured me. My anger flared even more. He slowly approached me, his gaze taking in every inch of me. If I weren't locked up here, he murmured, I'd pin you down and inject something that would make you feel absolute bliss. I couldn't bear to hear any more. Ethan, you're going to rot in hell, I spat, then turned and fled. Even after I left the underground cell, my breath was still erratic, the image of his insane expression lingering in my mind. But at least in this life, I had finally escaped him. That night, Logan came home drunk. As soon as he entered the bedroom, he stumbled forward and crashed into me, causing us both to fall to the floor. You're drunk, I muttered, trying to push him off. I'll make you some tea to sober up. But he didn't move. Instead, he started unbuttoning his shirt, his eyes locking onto mine with intense possessiveness. I froze. In that moment, I realized he wasn't drunk at all. Logan, think carefully about what you're doing, I said firmly. We're just partners. You have no right to touch me. He suddenly covered my mouth and whispered in my ear, No matter what, you're my wife and I will touch you. I pushed him away. No. I want a divorce. You can't touch me. The room went silent. Logan's face darkened, and he slowly released me, his expression unreadable. I knew it, he muttered. I knew you were planning to leave me. There was something in his voice that sounded defeated. Susan, you're heartless, he said. Have you already forgotten me? I frowned. What do you mean? I asked, his dark eyes fixed on mine. Do you remember Chase? His words took me back to my childhood memories. I was still in elementary school at the time. There was a boy with long hair who always wore a mask. The other kids teased him, calling him weak and girly, but I stood up for him, shielding him from their taunts and leading him to the back of the school. You can't be this shy, I told him. You need to learn how to protect yourself. He slowly lifted his head and removed his mask. Thank you, he said softly. I just wanted to grow out my hair to donate to my aunt. She has cancer. That was when I saw his face for the first time, and I was stunned. He was incredibly handsome. In that moment, I fell for him instantly. From that day on, I stayed by his side, protecting him. He introduced himself as Chase. Later, after his aunt passed away, he moved away. I've been searching for you all these years, Logan continued, his voice low. When I discovered I could hear your thoughts, I didn't realize you were the person I had been looking for all along. I can only hear your thoughts. He let out a bitter chuckle. I never revealed myself because I was waiting for you to come to me first. I wanted to see if you still remembered me. His voice softened further. One day, I heard your thoughts. You said that once you saved up 10 million, you would leave me. His eyes turned red. That's why I've been avoiding you these past few days. I didn't want to face the fact that you were planning to leave me. I was utterly stunned. I never expected such a coincidence. Logan could hear people's thoughts, and in that moment, I realized he had been testing me all along. "So that's why you knew I could hear your thoughts?" I asked. He murmured. "You purposely thought those things to confirm it, didn't you?" I lowered my gaze. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I never meant to use you. I was just afraid of being abandoned again. That's why I thought if I saved enough money, I could leave on my own terms." "Do you still want to leave me?" he asked. I shook my head. "Before, I wanted to leave because I thought you didn't love me. I believed that staying by your side wouldn't bring me happiness, so I should rely on myself. But now I know who you are. You are Chase. You've been waiting for me all this time. So I'll stay." Suddenly, it all made sense why in my past life, he had rejected Sophia so strongly. He had known that she wasn't me, which was why he never touched her. As this thought settled in, I felt the warmth of his lips against my cheek. "Stay with me forever, Susan," he whispered. My eyes welled with tears. "Yes," I choked out. "Forever." Thank God for the second chance at life. Thank God I didn't miss the person I was meant to love.